The story begins in a magnificent mansion of a wealthy family. A large fortune, designated to be inherited by the young master of the E family. Among the family's servants, there is a fastidious butler and beautiful young maids. They are in charge of cleaning, cooking, and serving everything for the young master every day. In the young master's bathroom today, a maid with flowing pink hair had just finished preparing the bath for the young master. Phew, so tired, she sat on the floor, finally done. Her sparkling eyes sparkled in the steam of the bathroom, her soft body in the low-cut dress of the maids in this house. She looked so sexy. At this moment, the sound of footsteps opened the large bedroom door and walked in. "Young Master E, you're back," the little girl bowed to him. A tall boy with a beautiful face walked to the bath that the maid had just prepared. As he took off his shirt, revealing his strong chest, he gradually stepped into the fragrant bathtub. The master gently sat down, all his clothes were taken off and thrown on the little maid. The girl quickly picked it up and placed it neatly on the cart to take it to the laundry department. "Come here, help me wash my back," the young master spoke. The little maid blushed flustered, tremblingly held a small towel and approached. What an embarrassing situation. It is impossible to disobey such a fastidious master, otherwise he will immediately fire any employee in the castle. The young girl thought to herself, just treat him like a child, it will be okay. As soon as she placed the wet towel on his back from behind, the girl blushed at her master's firm skin. A broad and sturdy shoulder makes a girl's heart skip a beat for a moment. The young master felt the rapid breathing behind him, his ears heated up, and he turned around. "Look at me," he said, looking straight into her face at close range. "Young master, The little maid hesitated. Before she could withdraw, her waist was pulled down by a strong male hand, causing her to slip and fall into the bathtub. Her clothes were soaked, tight to her body, clearly revealing every curve of the girl's chest. Her waist and butt were irresistibly attractive. Before she could stop being scared, she could only say "you," was stopped by the young master with his mouth. The young girl's first kiss was taken away, in the most intense and violent way. Overwhelmed, scared, shaken. The scared girl tried to push him away, her hand touching the wet skin, so she felt the strange feeling before creating distance with the tall man who was pressing his body against her, his hand still holding her waist and nape tightly. While her resistance was not enough, the girl struggled to avoid her master's kiss. Suddenly, his hand pushed her away, causing her to fall backwards. The bastard's cold face commanded, "If you don't think it's right, get out now." Sitting on the floor, the girl looked up in fear at the tall body that was no longer looking at her. He is no longer the passionate man she just touched, but an ungrateful businessman. The young master quickly wrapped a large bath towel around his waist and walked straight out the door, speaking loudly to the maids waiting outside, "Don't try to seduce me again next time." Meanwhile, the servant girl of E family was still huddled in the bathroom, soaked and with tangled hair, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Was he teasing and molesting the maid? What a scoundrel! Angry, disgusted, and feeling the strange sensation of first-time physical contact, she couldn't understand what she should do. She walked out of the door in a miserable state, amid the disdainful looks of the servants outside. Seduction? Did he forcibly kiss her? Claiming that she seduced him? Truly despicable. "Xia Ihan, you think I want to seduce you?" "Unworthy," he retorted loudly, turning to look at her. He remembered her name, the only one among the maidens in the house. So, he deliberately humiliated her, making her despised within the household. Just as she understood the situation, she realized she couldn't leave until the master returned. She couldn't argue with the young master. Xia Ihan lowered her head in acceptance. "That prostitute, we should keep an eye on her more," whispered a maid with short green hair. The young master's angry eyes turned towards her. "What did you say? Speak up, I couldn't hear clearly." His cold voice sent shivers down the spines of the maids and the butler. Including Xia Ihan, everyone bowed their heads in apology, promising not to offend again. The master turned away and left, his body still covered by a bath towel. The butler sternly reminded the girls that no one was allowed to approach Mr. E. And Xia Ihan would be punished with floor cleaning for a month. Everyone obeyed and dispersed. Their rooms to rest. The supervisor left, leaving the girls to manage their own affairs. As Xia Ihan was unlocking her room, the mocking voices of 3 new maids resounded beside her. They scornfully accused her of seducing the master. "What do you want?" Xia Ihan asked the ringleader. One of the girls defended Xia Ihan, but her words fell on deaf ears. The aggressive maids pushed the girl, making her fall to the ground. Xia Yihan rushed to help her up. The blonde girl raised her hand angrily, intending to slap Xia Yihan, but she calmly said, "If you dare to hit me, you'll regret it." The girl hesitated and was restrained by her friends. They left with resentment. And so, a day passed. In her restless sleep, Xia Yihan was haunted by nightmares. "Little brother, don't run," she cried in her dream, chasing after a boy who was running away from her. The more she ran, the farther he went. "Little brother, don't run, come back," she shouted, tears streaming down her face. But the more she chased, the faster the image of her little brother disappeared. Xia Yihan woke up, feeling sad, tears flowing down her cheeks. She consoled herself, "For him, I will endure these terrible days in the Yi household." The next day, fulfilling the punishment of cleaning the floor for a whole month, Xia Yihan diligently scrubbed the floor until 10 p.m. The hall was deserted by this time, most people working in the house had gone to bed. She was alone cleaning the floor in the area leading to the master's room in the Yi family. As she was cleaning, she heard leisurely footsteps approaching. A figure, graceful but full of sarcasm, appeared in front of her. "How are you feeling?" The young master, asked, looking at the girl. Xia Yihan honestly replied, "Mr. Yi, even though I feel terrible, I need this job, I need the money." "Oh, with your plea, if you need money that badly, this matter can be easily resolved, right?" he said, lifting the chin of the small maid, his gaze filled with mockery. Pushing away his hand, Xia Yihan resolutely answered, "I need money from my own labor," understanding his implied suggestion. Not giving up, Mr. East leaned close to Xia Yihan's petite face, whispering in her ear, "Why does the little maid know she doesn't need to try hard to become someone's lover? You should learn how to beg a man, shouldn't you?" Suppressing her rising anger, Xia Yihan calmly moved aside, saying, "Mr. Yi, it's late. You should rest. I still need to continue cleaning the floor. We can't talk anymore." She bowed down, determined to finish her work before it got too late and to end this crazy encounter. The young master, casually slipped his hands into his pockets and strolled towards the bedroom door. Standing in front of the large bedroom door, he glanced at Xia Yihan, nonchalantly announcing, "Starting from tonight, all the servants will take turns to have night duty in my bedroom. And tonight is your turn." Utterly bizarre, this despicable pervert, Xia Yihan struggled to suppress the scream building within her. She stood up and chased after him to plead, "Wait a moment, Mr. Yi." Hurriedly, she rushed and clumsily followed the young master, not reacting in time when he suddenly stopped. She crashed into his back, causing her headache to intensify, and her composure further shattered. Stammering, she said, "Mr. E, please forgive me, but the butler didn't mention that I had the night shift tonight." The cold response from the young master, "Are you questioning my orders? If you don't want to do it, then get lost." The arrangements made by the steward couldn't help her resist the command of this madman. He was the true master of this castle, succeeding Mr. E. Xia Yihan bowed her head obediently. She meekly followed the young master into his bedroom. Xia Yihan looked at his large bed, starting to feel fear. Before she could prepare herself, the master began unbuttoning his shirt. He didn't look at Xia Yihan, just coldly announced, "Close the door." Xia Yihan whispered, "Yes," then closed the bedroom door. At this point, the upper body of the young master, was bare. His tall, fair, and muscular physique approached her. He came so close that Xia Yihan trembled and retreated into a corner, slightly mesmerized by that figure. The gaze of the young master softened a bit. His tone, a mix of command and plea, asked, "If I say you should sleep with me, what would you do?" Fearful, Xia Yihan spoke hesitantly, "Mr. E, I have always wanted to do this job, but I still have a little mistake. If you make such a request, I might have to." Before Xia Yihan could finish her sentence, the young master abruptly turned away, stepping several meters away from her. He loudly said, "What are you thinking? Sleeping with me? You're not worthy," and then walked into the bathroom. Xia Yihan breathed a sigh of relief, as if she had just escaped from a predator. Without the command of the master, she was not allowed to leave. She had to stay in the room, waiting for further instructions. Xia Yihan involuntarily looked around. On the bedside table, she saw several pictures of the young master, when he was a child and as he grew up. These were photos of him with his mother, taken together. They looked happy and gentle. Xia Yihan wondered silently if his relationship with his father was not good, which is why there were only pictures of him and his mother. Lost in thought, a gentle and mesmerizing voice whispered in her ear at an unexpected moment. Xia Yihan didn't realize that she was holding the family photo to look at when the master quietly approached her from behind. Sorry, I didn't know what to do, so I just took a quick peek. I hope you'll forgive me, the young master, with a bathrobe draped over him, sat comfortably on his bed, issuing another command. Now, I need to rest, so you. By this point, Xia Yihan's eyes sparkled, on the verge of tears due to fear. He finished the remaining words, full of mockery, so you go over to that sofa and do what you should do. As he spoke, he pointed to the long chair in the corner. Truly, he knew how to tease others. Xia Yihan lowered her head and whispered, yes, then went to the sofa. After a day of hard work, this small girl was exhausted and absent-mindedly followed through with the actions requested. She didn't realize that beside the sofa, young Master E11 Mu was closely watching her, his gaze alternating between suspicion and tenderness. In his mind, she pretends well. Does she think I don't know she's a spy sent by the election hall to gather information about me? I want her to see that I'm not easily disturbed like this. The night passed like that. The next morning, the household servants were lined up, waiting for their daily assignments. The butler asked where Xia Yihan was. A maid with short green hair sneered, she didn't come back to her room all night. She must have climbed into some man's bed. This statement led the household staff to speculate all sorts of things, and they were all worried that Xia Yihan had climbed into the master's bed. At this moment, Xia Yihan woke up and stepped out of the large door, where many eyes were waiting for her. Seeing Xia Yihan, the servants were shocked and furious. The blonde girl rudely asked Xia Yihan, where did you go last night? Xia Yihan, still in a daze, couldn't explain her disheveled appearance. Before she could answer, the master approached from behind, his hands casually in his pockets, and proudly stated, last night, she served me very well. However, no one is allowed to enter my room without permission. I really hate assertive women. This sarcastic remark harmed Xia Yihan, and she immediately received a stinging slap from the angry blonde girl. How dare you do such a thing, she shouted. Top of form. With one hand holding her pained face, the fragile girl seemed too delicate for such a strong slap. Xia Yihan looked resentfully at the mastermind behind her current misery. She silently thought, are you satisfied now, young Master E? Did you intentionally orchestrate this? A hint of gentle sadness appeared in Ishimu's eyes as he turned away, speaking to the butler. Oh, right, Mr. He will be coming here this afternoon. Ensure all the servants pay attention to their attire and appearance, don't damage the reputation of the E family. His authoritative words made everyone bow their heads in compliance. He left immediately after. The butler gathered the maids and informed them that the clothes on the trolley next to him were new uniforms for them. Anyone still wearing old uniforms should switch to the new ones. If anyone's negligence tarnishes the reputation of the E family this afternoon, they will be punished. In the servants' quarters, as Xia Yihan was changing, a girl of similar age called her outside. The girl expressed her belief in Xia Yihan and shared that Lina and the other girls intended to bully her. Introducing herself as Xiao Zio, she expressed a strong desire to be friends with Xia Yihan. However, the joyous moment didn't last. Just as Xia Yihan turned to enter her room, she discovered that her new clothes had been shredded, causing her to be terrified. Someone among the maids had cut her uniform, and Xia Yihan would not have a new one this afternoon. She would be penalized. At this moment, it was time for the guest to arrive. The sound of a luxurious car echoed at the castle gate. The gatekeeper rushed forward to greet and open the car door for the arriving guest. It was Mr. Hai Jixian, a trusted secretary of the Dongjiang Chamber of Commerce. Top of form. Entering the grand staircase leading to the castle's large living room, Mr. He was greeted by the bowing maids of the E family, including Xia Yihan in her old attire. Hai Jixian glanced at Xia Yihan before proceeding directly into the living room. On an extravagant chair, Ishimu was already seated, waiting for him. Across from Ishimu was a seat reserved for He Jixian. Due to the long table, the two would be sitting far apart, especially in such a spacious room. Mr. Hai, please have a seat. Ishimu's composed and courteous demeanor sharply contrasted with the discomfort he harbored for the household staff. Hai Jixian replied, no need for such formality, I find these rituals quite tense. Ishimu signaled the butler to serve the dishes prepared by the chef. A sumptuous dinner, served by the household staff, commenced. Xia Yihan and the other servants assisted in serving this meal. Standing near Hai Jixian, Xia Yihan personally placed the first dish on the table for him to enjoy. Xia Yihan's calm gaze while standing beside Hai Jixian, and Hai Jixian's gentle demeanor toward her, irked Ishimu, making his face more unpleasant. The luxurious banquet table for the two in the living room overlooked the garden of the Yi family. Hai Jixian complimented gently, "This is a beautiful place with such charming servants, it's truly wonderful." The praise seemed to intensify the annoyance within Ishimu. He chuckled, probing Hai Jixian's thoughts, "Do you like them? I can give you one." He then pointed his index finger towards Xia Yihan, who was busy arranging the food on the table near Ishimu's seat. Hai Jixian waved his hand with a smile, saying, "Mr. Yi, you're quite the joker." Meanwhile, Xia Yihan fell victim to a blonde maid's dirty trick. The girl tripped Xia Yihan, causing her to fall, and the dish she held crashed onto the floor. The food scattered, staining Hai Jixian's clothes. Xia Yihan, horrified, knelt down before the esteemed guest, holding a towel in her hands, begging for forgiveness. Hai Jixian didn't mind, graciously accepting the towel and calmly wiping the stains from his clothes, saying, "It's all right." Across the table, Ishimu's scrutinizing gaze observed them closely. To demonstrate generosity, the Yi family's master chuckled lightly, "Mr. He, this girl is new, so she's still a bit clumsy. Xia Yihan, please escort Mr. He to the changing room." Xia Yihan complied, leading Hai Jixian through the flower garden to the changing room. Meanwhile, at the dining table, Ishimu smirked knowingly. Intentionally approaching the master, the blonde maid appeared obediently and whispered in his ear, "Mr. E, I think that girl seems eager to charm Mr. He. Do you want me to keep an eye on her?" Normally, she would have been punished for meddling in the affairs of the master, but this time Ishimu was genuinely pleased. He casually replied, "If they want it that way, let them have it." Thus, the mischievous game played by the blonde maid contributed to the convenience of Ishimu's arrangements. His true intention was to create a private space for Hai Jixian to meet Xia Yihan. Indeed, the wealthier homeowners were never straightforward. Xia Yihan led Mr. He to Ishimu's dressing room, a large room filled with luxurious wardrobes containing branded clothes, shoes, and hats. It resembled a high-end fashion store with an elaborate lighting system. As Hai Jixian opened one of the wardrobe doors to pick out a change of clothes, Xia Yihan intended to turn away and wait outside. Suddenly, Hai Jixian's hand rested on her shoulder, holding her firmly and turning her back. Holding both of her shoulders tightly, Hai Jixian pulled her closer. Unable to contain himself any longer, he anxiously said, "Not him, it's a mistake for you to stay here. Not everyone here can mistreat you, right?" Hai Jixian's worried expression was a stark contrast to his calm demeanor moments ago. He genuinely felt concern for Xia Yihan. "Mr. He, what's the matter?" "No, I must work well here. Thank you sincerely," Xia Yihan responded, her voice reflecting gratitude. Hai Jixian looked up at her face. The scratches on her cheek and the excessively worn-out uniform spoke volumes about her situation in this household. Xia Yihan raised her hand to cover the bruise from the beating by the blonde maid yesterday. It seemed quite apparent, and Xia Yihan felt embarrassed. Hai Jixian said, "If anything happens, tell me. I will help you." Xia Yihan gripped his hand tightly, "I'm fine. To avenge the death of Xiao Quan, I'm willing to do anything. Mr. He, I saw a family photo of Ishimu without the presence of his father. Their relationship might not be good. Will the master of the Yi family come here?" Hai Jixian, regaining his composure, said, "You should remember they are father and son. Regardless of their strained relationship, he is still the son of Ji Haonian." Xia Yihan fell silent and stepped out, making way for Hai Jixian to change. "You are truly stubborn," Hai Jixian shook his head with concern. Back in the dining room, Ishimu was still sitting there waiting. As soon as Hai Jixian entered, Ishimu praised his attire, "You look great in that outfit." Hai Jixian thanked him and turned towards Xia Yihan, saying, "It's strange how a stranger can find a suitable outfit, but the maid's attire doesn't seem comfortable." Everyone present understood the implication of each other's words. Ishimu's eyes flashed with bitterness. "Is there a problem with her attire?" He pointed his gaze at Xia Yihan. Yi's young master gestured to the butler inquiring about the old clothes Hin was wearing. The butler hesitated before stating that he would take her to change into new clothes. At this moment, Xia Yihan, trembling, said, "My clothes were cut, so I borrowed some from someone else." The blonde maid, in a somewhat fearful tone, looked at Xia Yihan as she spoke. However, the butler saved her by scolding Xia Yihan, accusing her of lying and covering up her incompetence. No one defended her rights in this situation. Xia Yihan quietly bowed her head before the Yi family master, saying, "If you don't want to fire me, then please impose the punishment." Only now did Mr. Yi show a generous gesture, standing up, approaching Xia Yihan, and while speaking, he adjusted the shoulder of her loosely fitting uniform, covering her ample bosom, "Who said I would dismiss you? Give her 2 newly tailored outfits. If she tears them again this time, she will be truly punished." Tears in Xia Yihan's eyes were about to overflow, truly making Yi Shimu unable to control himself. He could no longer maintain his cold and harsh demeanor, especially when he touched her shoulder. All the anger from her intimacy with Hai Ji-xian earlier had dissipated. After the swiftly concluded meal, Yi Shimu led Hai Ji-xian to tour the various plants in the garden. Inside the room, the blonde maid showed no fear for her recent actions. Standing beside the butler, she proclaimed loudly, "The young master has spoiled this girl. Anyone not wearing the uniform will be dismissed, that's the rule. Let's see who will dare to disobey in the future." The butler gave a disdainful look at the blonde girl and said, "Enough, just do as you're told. As for you," he addressed Xia Yihan, "you will be assigned to cut the grass from 10 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon." Xia Yihan did not engage in their conversation, merely responding with a yes before leaving. The triumphant blonde girl thought to herself that a girl with sunburned skin like Xia Yihan couldn't possibly seduce anyone. In the servants' dining area, gossip about Xia Yihan continued to spread among the blonde girls' group. They mocked and slandered her, using derogatory language to describe her as a promiscuous woman. Xia Yihan quietly sat in a corner, eating her meal, pretending not to hear the disrespectful comments. At this moment, a young man spoke up, "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" A handsome young man in the servant uniform of the Yi family sat in the empty seat next to Xia Yihan. He introduced himself as Trin Hao. Xia Yihan introduced herself in return. Trin Hao expressed his admiration for her beauty, mentioning that he was the grandson of the butler and would be willing to help if anyone bullied her. Xia Yihan thanked her new acquaintance. At least, it brought a small joy during her days in this madhouse. However, even this act aroused envy among the household maids, who continued to gossip, claiming that Xia Yihan was trying to seduce the butler's grandson, further labeling her as a terrible woman. The group of maids with the blonde girl went crazy when they saw the young man serving food to Xia Yihan. They wanted to play another prank on her. The girl with turquoise hair sinisterly laughed and whispered to the blonde girl, "Imagine if those men knew how loose she is, having undergone an abortion. Do you think they would still want to be around her?" The turquoise-haired girl added, further shocking the blonde girl with her statement, "Of course, it's not true. But if such rumors spread, everyone will believe it." Indeed, it was a dirty and effective tactic, and the blonde girl found it intriguing. The two girls crossed their arms as they walked past the dining table where Xia Yihan was seated. The blonde one sneered and said, "You wretch, are you trying to seduce all the men?" Infuriated, the butler's grandson responded, "Who are you talking about? As a servant of the Yi family, you should speak carefully." The green-haired girl smirked, defending her friend, "She's just straightforward, handsome. She genuinely wishes well for you. She has seduced Yi young master and Mr. Hai multiple times, and now she's trying to seduce you too, my friend," continued the blonde girl, speaking derogatory words right beside Xia Yihan. With a fake smile, she turned towards Xia Yihan and spoke loudly, intentionally letting everyone in the dining area hear, "I sympathize with you because you've been deceived. In reality, you're a promiscuous girl who had an abortion by an unknown man." This was the limit of Xia Yihan's endurance. She slammed the bowl onto the table, stood up angrily, and shouted at the blonde girl, "You just made up a story about me." The two blonde and green-haired girls were undeterred, continuing to taunt Xia Yihan. Frustrated and angry, Xia Yihan couldn't resist due to her assigned task. At this point, Xia Yihan's little friend and Trin Hao stood up to support her, but it was futile. They left in frustration, even threatening Xia Yihan's small friend, who was timid and shy. The lies had made Xia Yihan the target of disdainful comments and gossip throughout the house. However, she chose to remain silent as if she didn't hear anything, just wanting to leave this crazy place as soon as possible. Xia Yihan silently endured the punishment of cleaning the floor for a whole month. But they were not willing to let her off easily. The butler brought 2 bodyguards, claiming that she had violated the rule by seducing the young master, and she was fired from the castle. Despite trying to explain, Xia Yihan couldn't prevent the 2 bodyguards from dragging her out. Xia Yihan struggled in vain, she was too weak against the brutal bodyguards. They pulled her out of the living room's door. Just a step away from the door, Ishimu's voice echoed from behind, making them stop. Ishimu asked coldly, his gaze fixed on Xia Ihan, who was lying disheveled on the floor. Miss, the butler said Xia Ihan violated the forbidden rule of the castle's servants, and I fired her. Ishimu didn't look at him, showing curiosity as he asked, what forbidden rule is that? While the butler hesitated, the blonde girl appeared out of nowhere, answering in place of him, she seduced the butler's grandson, sir. Before, she was a promiscuous girl who had an abortion. Such a person working here would damage the reputation of the E family, added the green-haired girl promptly. They had been standing by, waiting for the chance to tell their master about these things. Ishimu was stunned, bending down to ask Xia Ihan, his eyes filled with a mix of curiosity and some disappointment, is that true? Ishimu lifted Xia Ihan's chin, bringing her face in line with his. Upon seeing the tear-filled eyes of Xia Ihan and without any explanation or plea from her, the young master no longer wanted to torment her. Ishimu leaned down, gently comforting her with a kiss on her lips. Everyone, including Xia Ihan, was shocked, not understanding what was happening. Ishimu paid no attention to the gazes around him, he was the owner of this estate and didn't need to explain his actions to anyone. Ishimu stood up, hands in his pockets, and said to Xia Ihan, change your clothes and come outside with me. At this moment, Xia Ihan didn't understand what was going on. Compared to being harmed by the villains earlier, the frustration she felt just now made her more embarrassed. Was he still the detested master who always caused trouble for her? Why did he act like this? Xia Ihan had countless questions in her mind that couldn't be answered, and the household servants were just as surprised tonight. The butler quickly changed his attitude towards Xia Ihan, apologizing and urging her to change clothes to accompany the young master for work. The two malicious girls tried to complain to the butler about Xia Ihan not only avoiding dismissal but also leaving with the young master. But before they could finish their sentences, the butler angrily interrupted, if you don't focus on your work, the next one to be fired will be both of you. He was resolute and left them terrified and resentful. Later, a black limousine carried the young master away from the castle. In the back seat, Xia Ihan, wearing a light white off-shoulder dress adorned with elegant and exquisite jewelry, sat beside a young master. At this moment, she looked like a goddess, with a perfect figure, the youthful charm of her 20s, and a beautiful face that overwhelmed Ishimu. Ishimu asked Xia Ihan, how do you feel about kissing me? Xia Ihan was too bewildered at this point. While trying to ask a young master about his question, his face approached her neck, urging her for an answer. Ishimu's arm wrapped around her shoulders, pulling her closer. The proximity made Xia Ihan lose her composure. She blurted out, it feels strange. This statement pleased Ishimu immensely. Xia Ihan regained her composure, reminding the chauffeur that they had arrived at their destination. Ishimu stepped out first, returning to his cold demeanor and walking closely with Xia Ihan. They entered the lobby of a large building together. Taking the elevator to the 48th floor, they were greeted by a servant who bowed and welcomed them. He opened the gate, guiding the young master inside. Xia Ihan widened her eyes in surprise, isn't this the most luxurious hall in Dongjian province? Only those with high status can come here. The servant respectfully explained, Master Yi, Mr. He, and Miss Tong have been waiting for a while. He, Mr. He, was also here. Xia Ihan moved from one surprise to another. Tong Quanjian, he's here. That was the voice of the young miss from the largest trading conglomerate in Dongjian province, Tong Quanjian. As soon as she saw Ishimu, she ran up to him, hugging his arm and casting a curious look at Xia Ihan, asking Ishimu who she was, having seen her for the first time. Ishimu, with his hands still in his pockets, continued walking, leaving her behind. He casually responded that she was just a servant. Tong Quanjian persisted, asking for the servant's name. Ishimu teased her that he would remember the names of all servants. Tong Miss moved closer to Ishimu, stating that he had a phenomenal memory, surely he would remember. Ishimu used the most sincere tone and pronounced 3 words, Xia Ihan. This made Miss Tong step back and sit on the opposite sofa, where Hai Ji-xian had been silently observing them. Miss Tong thought about the results of her question. Ishimu never remembered the names of any servants, so this girl must have a certain important position. Understanding Tong Quanjian's thoughts, Ishimu smiled, glanced at Xia Ihan, and told her, standing on the other side next to Hai Ji-xian, that she was just a servant, standing next to him was enough. Hearing this, Tong Quanjian felt at ease, ran to cling onto Ishimu, chatting with him playfully. The affectionate banter between the two echoed continuously, making both Hai Jixian and Xia Yihan feel awkward. Ishimu removed his arm from Tong Qianzian, turned to He Jixian, and cheerfully said, "Mr. He, your fiancé, Fian Rung, didn't come?" Hai Jixian explained that she was upset with him for not spending time with her, so she didn't come. However, for her upcoming birthday, he wanted to buy her some new clothes as a gift, and he planned to have Xia here try them on with him tomorrow. Suppressing his doubt and anger, Ishimu thought to himself, didn't they just meet, and now they want to go out together already? Young master smiled lightly, if you like, I can also give her to you. I will send someone to take her back before 5 p.m. tomorrow, Hai Jixian said gently. Ishimu inclined his head, addressing Xia Yihan who had been standing beside him, did you hear that? Xia Yihan calmly nodded in agreement. The next morning, Hai Jixian's luxurious car arrived at the Yi residence to personally pick up Xia Yihan. Top of form. E11 Mu stood in silence, showing a probing expression, and immediately turned away. Today, Xia Yihan looked glamorous in her new dress. Her waist and chest were perfect like a painting. They got into the car under the uncomfortable and worried gaze of E11 Mu from a distance. The car rushed away, and the two sat in silence until they left the city of Dongjiang. The route was unlike going to a shopping center. Xia Yihan finally spoke, asking, "Where are we going, Mr. He?" Hai Jixian explained that he wanted to take her to pay respects to Xia Yihan's late boyfriend, who passed away in July last year. Today was the anniversary of his death, and Hai Jixian believed that Xia Yihan wanted to visit him. Xia Yihan was surprised that Hai Jixian remembered it so accurately. The city of Linjiang is not too far from here, but we need to return before 5 p.m., so please guide us to the location, Miss Xia, Hai Jixian said. Xia Yihan was deeply moved and couldn't refuse such a kind gesture. The car took them to the cemetery where the tomb of Little Quan was located. Xia Yihan sat silently in front of the grave, having a lengthy conversation before finally standing up. Hai Jixian stood at a distance, observing without wanting to disturb her. When Xia Yihan turned back, a few tears still lingered on her face. She wiped them away with her hand. Hai Jixian gently approached her, holding her shoulders and said, "I consider you a friend, and if there's anything I can help you with, please let me know. And call me Jixian." Xia Yihan smiled, a rare sight since the consecutive sad events. "No, yes, Jixian." The next day, at the Yi family's castle, those who received assignments from the steward gathered. In a few days, it would be the birthday of young Master Yi, and Madame Yi would come here to congratulate him. Therefore, the maids needed to perform well if they wanted to stay. The steward announced that 5 girls would be chosen to perform at the party, excluding Xia Yihan, who was on the steward's blacklist. He assigned her to clean the garden and the large hall. While the other maids were assigned to perform in front of the mistress, excited about this opportunity, they secretly laughed at Xia Yihan, thinking she wouldn't win the favor of the mistress and could not stay longer. However, Xia Yihan found joy in not having to be present at the party. Because Xia Yihan was here for someone else, she quickly followed the steward, asking him about whether the Yi family's young master had come here on that day. But the steward scolded her for being curious about the master's private matters and then left. One day before E11 Mu's birthday, the mistress returned to the castle. While chatting with her son in the main room of the castle, the mistress became curious about E11 Mu hiring so many servants. Could it be too extravagant and wasteful? That was something the E-master wouldn't want to see, the mistress reminded her son. But E11 Mu just laughed and said, "So, if that's what I want, what's wrong with it?" The kind mother advised her son to let go of past matters, not to make himself uncomfortable. E11 Mu didn't respond, saying he would go into the kitchen to instruct the chef. The mistress told him to go and call the steward to receive her instructions. E11 Mu complied, and he gestured and turned towards the small maid standing in the corner of the room with the group of servants from earlier. "Xia Yihan, come to the kitchen with me." The two walked out of the large room, leaving everyone, including the madam and the other servants, astonished. The head butler was called over, bowing respectfully to the madam. As she held a teacup in her hand, taking a small sip without raising her head, she looked towards the butler, inquiring about the household's working conditions. The butler replied, "Most of them are doing well, madam." "Most?" The madam's gaze turned cold as she looked at the butler. "Yes, madam." Mrs. E placed the teacup on the table, turning back to the butler, waiting for an answer. He continued, his voice filled with embarrassment, "There is one maid named Xia Han. She doesn't seem very honest. I tried to dismiss her, but the young master wouldn't allow it." "Oh, Xia Han?" Mrs. Yi's tone showed immediate interest in the name the butler mentioned, and various thoughts crossed her mind. Xia Han followed behind littlle Mu into the kitchen. To everyone's surprise, he ordered all the kitchen staff to leave with the excuse of needing to taste the dishes they were preparing. Xia Han asked, "How may I assist you, sir?" Littlle Mu casually pointed to a pot of soup on the table, telling her to taste it. Although Xia Han didn't understand what littlle Mu wanted, she obediently followed his order. She took a spoonful and tasted the soup. Unable to express her feelings about this high-class dish she was trying for the first time, littlle Mu urged her, "If you don't comment, I'll have to taste it myself." The flavor was exquisite, and she honestly shared her perception of the dish. Littlle Mu truly didn't care about what she had said, it was just an excuse to approach her. Unable to restrain himself, littlle Mu stood close to the beautiful face, flushed from the heat in the kitchen. His lips, still stained with a bit of soup, became moist and irresistibly sensual. He pulled Xia Han closer, advancing for a deep kiss on her lips. His hands moved down to her waist and hips, holding tightly. Xia Han struggled, but littlle Mu's strength and fervor prevented her from pushing him away. She felt her mind getting fuzzy, and the intense kiss made her lose consciousness. The small bowl in her hand fell to the floor with a sound that didn't stop either of them. Xia Han couldn't comprehend the awaited feeling and happiness in this strange moment. Why did she have such feelings towards littlle Mu? Xia Han allowed him to take her lips and face, no longer resisting but instead placing her hand on his shoulder, embracing this peculiar emotion. One of littlle Mu's hands slipped under Xia Han's dress, gripping her buttocks and thighs. As the moments passed, he couldn't control his actions, wildly using his tongue to conquer Xia Han. Everything could only come to a halt when the stern voice of the middle-aged woman standing outside the kitchen door echoed. It was Mrs. E.